Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Bob Mendelsohn, and this is the Bob's Your Uncle podcast. That's some great Mendelssohn music from the Wedding March. I hope you like it. And this is season 7, episode 16, recorded on July 4th weekend of 2025. We're going to be talking with Patricia Fitzgerald-Bocarsly, provost of Rutgers University, and not representing Rutgers, but representing her own thoughts and views, and just like I do. You're going to love this interview. She's a scientist. She's a believer in God. How does that work? Stay tuned.
Don't know much about history. Don't know much biology. Don't know much about a science book. Don't know much about the French I took. But I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
On this date in history, the 15th of July in 1099, the First Crusade culminated in the capture of Jerusalem. In 1799, the Rosetta Stone, the key to deciphering Egyptian hieroglyphics, was discovered in Egypt by the French. In 1916, William Boeing founded the company that would become the Boeing Company, originally named Pacific Aero Products, there in Seattle. In 1997, the fashion designer Gianni Versace was murdered in Miami. And in 2006, Twitter was founded. And that's the historical marker of the week.
But I do know that I love you. And I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be.
Dr. Fitzgerald-Bocarsly is provost of Rutgers Biomedical and Health Sciences, Newark. She's tenured professor and vice chair for research of the Department of Pathology and Laboratory Medicine at Rutgers in New Jersey Medical School. She earned her BS in biochemistry from UCLA, an MA in microbiology from UC Davis, and PhD in microbiology immunology from Boston University School of Medicine, completing her postdoc training as a fellow at the Sloan Kettering Institute. Right away, we have to tell people that I'm just interviewing you, Patricia. I'm not interviewing Rutgers or Sloan or Kettering. Neither of them is here. Just you, so these opinions are your own, and that's the way we like to do it. So thanks for joining me. My, oh my, Pat Bocarsly, you studied at prestigious universities, worked at Sloan Kettering, and now you've been in the suburbs of New Jersey for a lot of years. If you had to do it over again, where would you change things? And what would be the result of that change?
So I actually work in Newark and New Brunswick, which are very urban, but I do live in the suburbs, as you know. So I do consider Rutgers to be a very prestigious university as well. We've risen to number 15 in the nation for public universities. So would I do anything differently? I don't know. At one point, I did want to have a medical degree in addition to a PhD, but life happened and I decided that I didn't really want to go that route. And I'm very happy with that decision and what I do. I've been provost for almost 7 years, and it was a skill I had in administration and mentoring that led me to apply for the position. But I'm glad I still get to do my own science as well. So I wouldn't do anything a whole lot different.
I don't even know what a provost is. Would you define that for us? And what does that mean in terms of your day-to-day workload there in New Jersey?
Sure. I'm one of two provosts for Rutgers Health. I report to the chancellor and the senior vice chancellor for academic affairs at Rutgers Health, and am part of the president's administrative council. My role is in all things related to faculty, hiring, mentoring, promotion, funding, policy, and training about all the areas I mentioned. In my role as provost, I'm building into faculty lives and especially junior faculty, and I really enjoy that. Helping junior faculty succeed is enormously rewarding. So it's supposed to be approximately a half-time job, with my academics, teaching, and research being the other half. But my boss, the chancellor, says with a smile, "Well, it depends upon half of what." And so it turns out what is a very large number of hours.
Pat, I've known you and your husband Andy for decades, since the 1980s when you moved east and my family was living in New York City. What, if you had any, were your biggest fears about moving across the country then? And are those fears long gone?
Well, I think one thing that was a little scary about moving across country was I was going to be married to this guy that I'd met in organic chemistry lab at UCLA, and had shared with him about the Jewish Messiah. And suddenly we were going to be married. So that was a little bit scary. And I was a little nervous about moving from sunny Southern California to Boston, where Andy and I would be in graduate school. He was already there for a year before I got there at MIT, and I had finished my master's at Davis and would carry out my PhD at Boston University. So that was a little scary. We drove across country and got there in the middle of the night and opened up our new apartment door, and all these cockroaches went scurrying. And I said, "Oh no, what have I gotten myself into?" It was I was a little nervous about being away from family that far, and a little nervous about the weather, never having experienced winter other than a short trip to the mountains. So, but I loved studying in Boston, and I love New Jersey, where we have lived since 1980, that fall, and having four seasons.
You mentioned that this business of the Jewish Messiah, you just slipped that in. Your scientific credentials are stellar. Your personal faith is also, I would say, well known. And some of my listeners have told me that a person can't do that. That you're either religious or a person of science. How do you resolve those categories that to some seem fairly polar opposites?
They're absolutely not opposites at all. And loving God and science are both part of the revelation of God. Being a person of faith enhances my science, and being a scientist enhances my personal faith, and my awe in God's creation. Historically, many of the people that we think of as founders of a modern understanding of science were devout Christians, and really set the stage for modern science. So think about Copernicus, who wrote about how the Earth is not the center of the universe, that we revolve around the sun. Ended up in jail for that. Galileo, who studied the universe, also ended up in jail. Isaac Newton, who invented the calculus and the theory of gravity. All were men of really great faith. In addition, we'll jump way up to the recent period. Francis Collins, who was the head of the Human Genome Project and someone that I've gotten to know a little bit, and also was the head of the NIH over two presidencies. He is a man of really great faith and not afraid to talk about it. So I think that these heroes of the faith are people that I look to in my scientific um, journey of science and faith. So the way I see it, and this is not original to me, but God has written two great books. Of course, the Bible is one, but there's also the book of his creation. To me, as I read the Bible, I see the hand of God in his second book, and I see the gift of inquiry for me as a scientist or for any little kid who asks a million questions, that
Mhm.
these are gifts that he has given to us.
Pat, are there communities of science and Bible people to which you belong?
And I'm involved with several organizations that have people of like mind. And I can tell you, it's so much fun to sit and worship with a group of scientists at the American Scientific Affiliation annual conference and be lifting up our voices together in praise of God, the creator of both the book, one book, and the second book of his creation.
It's a beautiful way to describe it. Thanks. You mentioned children and wonder. You have three adult children. You have a bunch of grandkids, including that new one in Texas, Mazel Tov. What are your hopes for those grandchildren in these days and at the end of days?
Hmm. Yes, we have three adult children, and you've known them forever.
What about the grandkids?
Our six grandchildren range in age from 7 weeks, I guess, tomorrow, and 11 years. The oldest of them, Ellie, was recently baptized, which was very exciting to us, and had to proclaim her faith. We're very blessed that all of our children and their spouses love the Lord. My hopes for our grandchildren are that they would first and foremost seek a personal relationship with the Lord, as Ellie already has. That would be my first. Um, that would be my first. And that second, that they would seek to grow up to be kind, generous, and hardworking. I think it's really important. And to be good role models for the people that they interact with.
It's beautiful. What gets you up each morning? Not your alarm clock, not your husband, not not the smell of coffee, or unless that's it. You know,
Mm.
by now many folks have retired and are living a life of luxury on a coast somewhere. But you get up, you go to work, you have staff and students and interns and projects. What gets you up in the morning?
What really gets me up and out the door to the office is passion for the work I'm doing, both in the lab, where we study the aging of the immune system and viral human immunology, and in the classroom, and in my provost duties. I can say I do spend probably the majority of my time, no, definitely the majority of my time on my provost duties.
You had to pivot 5 years ago when COVID hit, didn't you? How'd that work out?
The research part of it meant rapidly converting my lab to study COVID-19 patients. Since I was a human viral immunologist, it was like, oh, another pandemic. I started my career at the beginning of the HIV pandemic when I was at Sloan Kettering. Again, another thing that gets me up is training the next generation of scientists, physicians, and medical educators, and hiring and nurturing those who will train each of this new generation.
You know, the world is changing, and you mentioned the bookends of the pandemics. Everything about, they say that change is the only constant. What worries you about changes you see in the world just now?
I'm spending way too much of my time worrying these days, and then having to continually be brought back to scripture saying, don't worry about anything, don't be anxious. You can't. But I'm really worried about the current political situation in the United States and really in multiple parts of the world, which I find to be unnecessarily divisive. I don't think we have to hate people of the other party, which has been suggested by our leader. And I also am worried about the undervaluing of science and higher education. I also worry about the lack of care for the environment and for social justice and care for the less fortunate. The act of cutting off funding to US aid, for example, which was actually started by one of my colleagues when he was at Harvard. He's had like all of his funding has been pulled for work in Africa. And what they're saying, and this was actually started by, I think, the first George Bush. And that was the PEPFAR program for HIV. Um, And what it means is that with HIV drugs just sitting rotting on shelves, that millions are likely to die in Africa, including children and other developing areas from preventable and treatable diseases. And that really, really worries me. Also really worry about the church. And I'm calling it the little C in America, little church. America giving up its first principles of the gospel to focus more on politics and wealth rather than having a clear focus on the gospel, and forgetting about compassion, servanthood, and love. So that worries me a lot. But I am constantly reminded that the King of the universe is in charge and tells us not to worry but by prayer and petitioning, make our requests known to God, and that He has already won the battle.
Thank you. That's a wide range of information. I want to simplify it down to real quick lightning round. Tell me, which is your druthers, New Jersey or California?
New Jersey.
Jersey Mike's or Five Guys?
Jersey Mike's.
Apple products or all the other computer companies?
Are there any other products besides Apple?
Daughters or sons?
They're different. Daughters sometimes stay closer, and are more open. But seeing my son develop as a new father is just a total delight.
That's beautiful. Dogs or cats?
I have both.
I know.
But I would have to say dogs.
I like your dogs. Pat, have you ever asked someone for their autograph?
I don't think so.
Yeah. And what do you fear having to get rid of in case you downsize your home?
My books.
We've covered a lot of stuff. Is there anything we've left out or you want to correct or you want to say to the international global audience of Bob's your uncle?
Okay, well, I just want to say that how much Andy and I appreciate Bob and his ministry to our family for many decades. I think almost 40 years. He was our children's counselor at camp, presided over their Messianic bar and bat mitzvahs, and was the co-officiant for each of their weddings. And for many of those coming all the way from Australia to do that to New Jersey. He's been a great friend and brother to us for these many decades. So that was a little bit of schmaltzy stuff, but we really love you.
And I love you and your family. You're an amazing family. Would to God we'd all have good models around us of what faith looks like and how it works in a real world. Pat, you've been a joy. Thanks so much. Shalom to you, to all your family. I'll look to see you again when God gives us time. Thanks so much.
I look forward to that as well.
Every week we read from the #1 bestseller of all time, the Bible, and this week's no different. Except this week I've asked Pat to share her favorite verse.
I'll share with you one of my favorite verses in the Bible, which is actually on a hanging, while hanging in my living room. That was done in Hebrew. It's Psalm 19, one of my favorite chapters in the Bible. And it's Psalm 19:1 states, and I'll read this: "The heavens declare the glory of God, the skies proclaim the work of his hands."
Thanks for staying with us a couple extra minutes this week. I wanted you to hear Pat Bocarsly and what really matters in her life there in New Jersey and wherever you are, whether you're out for your evening constitutional, you're at the gym, you're at home with your headphones. Thanks for being with us. And look, when things look bleak or uncertain, look up to God. He's in his heaven, and Bob's your uncle. Shalom from Nashville.